Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to a new edition of the USF Pro Insider. My name is Rob Howden. It is Tuesday, January the 27th, episode number 96, closing in on the magic number 100. We've done a bunch of these over the years. And of course, I started late last year with the champions of the three series in the USF Pro Championships. And since then, been working through all the drivers that they've been announced, a number of drivers being announced, as we know. I had a chance to step in and talk with the guys from D-Force Racing, our first team owner interview of this particular season of podcast. We have a new one here today. Berg Racing, a brand new team at USF Juniors. The father, Allen Berg, son, Alex Berg, co-owners of the team. They also own the Allen Berg Racing School. They have a program in the JFC F4 program. So a very vertical driver development level coming from schooling all the way through now to USF Juniors. We'll bring those guys in here momentarily. I do want to remind everybody that this show will be turned into a podcast. I'll have that up on Podbean and all the streaming podcast platforms later this week. You can always get all the podcasts as well on the mobile app, the USF Pro TV mobile app. Just scroll up on the opening page. You'll see all my podcasts at the bottom. So a great opportunity to learn a lot about the drivers. And of course, as I said, all the shows I've had so far this year have essentially been those drivers who have announced their confirmation for the 2026 season. There's still lots of drivers still to confirm, but I'm doing my best to knock out the drivers who have actually confirmed for 2026. Now, that brings us to what I've been doing in these podcasts, and that's mentioning the drivers who have confirmed since the last show. Of course, last week I had a chance to talk with Frankie Mossman and Ryan Janetta from VRD Racing. Since then, J. Howard Driver Development announcing a new driver for their USF Juniors program, Kasper Nissen. From Denmark, Danish driver who ran in the Nordic 4 Series last year, a race winner there. So he'll be a rookie in USF Juniors. We haven't had, I don't know if we've had a Dane since Christian Rasmussen. So, of course, as we know, much success with J. Howard Driver Development for Rasmussen, winning in both USF 2000 and the title in USF Pro 2000. Now a IndyCar driver full-time. With Ed Carpenter Racing. So Kasper Nissen, we'll see if he follows in those footsteps. And last but not least, Colin Aiken, who made his debut in USF Juniors last year with VRD Racing, the American, with a pretty good karting background. Did 2 weekends, 6 races in USF Juniors, but he's going to make the move to USF 2000 in 2026. So he locked in and confirmed earlier this week as well. So as I said, get that done. Driver announcements. Diving in with another team show and again, a brand new team for USF Juniors. I have personally known the family for many years since Alex was a young go-kart racer. They're Canadian, now living down in the U.S. Of course, the school, as we said, at Laguna Seca, the Allen Berg Racing School. But Berg Racing, a big part of what they do as well. Again, they have that team in the JFC F4 program. So let's bring them in here right now. We'll start with Allen Berg. We'll bring in Alex in as well. Guys, first off, thank you very much for joining me. I'll do a little bit of introduction after that.
Hey, Rob. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic. Great to see you guys. Many of you know, if you've been around racing for a while, you might know Allen. Worked his way through karting, but did a lot of Formula car racing. Ended up doing British F3 against the likes of Martin Brundle and Ayrton Senna. Found his way for a number of starts in Formula One with Acela, and then became a champion as well in Mexican F2, had his own team here for many years, and now, of course, the owner of his own racing school and a team as well. Young Alex, I've known from karting. We're going to let him tell his origin story, but made a big move out of karting with an opportunity with Mazda, and then was able to do a lot of racing, and we'll be back for his family team this year. It's going to be a lot of fun to see these guys get things underway. Allen, let's start with you. Just a little bit of a little snippet of your career, but let's educate the people in the USF Pro Championships, all the fans and all the people in the community. Where did you start? How did you get to Formula One? Because that's a pretty cool thing to have on the resume.
Well, I mean, I basically have 2 facets to my career. Maybe, I guess you might say 3. Yeah. In that, of course, starting as a racing driver, as every young driver dreams. This was many, many years ago. My first exposure to motorsport was back in the 60s, watching Wide World of Sports, and you'd get 30-second clips of Formula One racing, and that always fascinated me. And of course, every kid has a dream of doing something, be it an astronaut or president or football player. Mine was to be a racing driver. The problem was I lived in Western Canada, and I mean, this is well before the days of internet. We had 2 channels. In any case, it was always a dream. At one stage, I was able to get involved with with karting. My dad and I bought a go-kart. We did a little bit of racing. Racing was much different back in those days. You know, there was ways for drivers to be able to work their way along, and I did very well in winning championships in in Western Canada, and attracted some attention to myself. I was able to make the graduation into Formula Ford back in those days, and ran in first year in Western Canada, and then the National Series in the United States, and did very well, winning a lot of races. And following that into Formula Atlantic, the North American Formula Atlantic Series, and won races there and contested for championships. I won the Tasman Series Championship in New Zealand.
Yeah.
In 1980,
which is now known as FR Oceania.
It is.
That's correct. FR Oceania, and there's great drivers that had gone and won this championship prior to me. Just absolute icons of the sport. During this whole time, Formula One was a dream. And then as I moved along, I realized that in order to achieve this dream, I needed to move to Europe, where the Formula One was, and I really never been to England or Europe before. I was able to attract the sponsorship from Grand Prix International magazine, which was an amazing magazine that was published in 5 languages and sent out to across Europe within 3 days after each Formula One race.
Wow. I
was supported and sponsored by Grand Prix International, and so I was able to make the transition going from racing in New Zealand and Australia and straight into living in Woking, and and practicing in the snow in Formula 3, and the water was incredibly deep. A lot of cultural challenges, not only the driving side of it, but moving to another part of the world where you don't know anyone as a youngster. It's very, very hard, but it was one of those situations where either you make it or you don't. I was determined to make it, and I moved across after winning a lot of different races and championships. I came across to the British Formula 3 Championship, which was a year that 83 was a big year between Senna and Brundle. Yeah. I finished second in that championship. I won one round that year, and then stayed on for a second season. I was with Eddie Jordan Racing at the time. Of course, became Jordan Grand Prix later on. I got my super license as a result of getting the attention and support of Bernie Ecclestone. I still needed sponsorship in order to make it. Everyone does in racing. The numbers were a little bit more accessible than what they are these days. Still very, very high numbers. Yeah. I was able to get into Formula One as a result of Mark Surer from Switzerland was being injured in a rally crash. He was driving with Arrows, and a friend of mine, Christian Danner, was with Osella at the time. Yep. And this is just right during the Canadian Grand Prix. So I was racing in Mexico, in fact, at the time. I flew to Montreal. My agent, who was actually the publisher of Grand Prix International magazine, Michel Koenig, met me there. And we spent the whole time, the weekend around Osella. Christian Danner was saying, get in the car, you should get this deal done. We spoke with Enzo Osella. Well, I mean, he spoke Italian and I spoke English, but we managed to communicate with him. And then on the Monday after the race, he finally gave us the nod that I was able to race with him. And we actually took out Danner's contract, which was all in Italian. My name and details were put in place, waited out. My name was put in. Wow. I didn't know what I was signing, but I signed it. I knew that I was becoming a Formula One driver. And then my debut was the next weekend at the U.S. Grand Prix in Detroit on the streets, without any practice. Stepping into a 900 horsepower Formula One car for the first time.
Where did you run the first time? Did I miss that?
It was in downtown Detroit.
Oh, that was your first race was Detroit, downtown Detroit.
My debut, yeah. First time in the car was first practice session on Friday morning. And anyway, I could go on and on about that.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But, following that, I was able to race in the German Touring Car Championship, World Sports Prototype Championship briefly. And then I was invited to go and race for some major brands down in Mexico, which I will say that Mexico is one country that probably has supported more drivers in international racing than almost any other country.
Yeah, it was a big part of your career down there, wasn't it?
Yeah,
winning.
I spent a lot of years down there. I met my wife down there from Mexico, and that's why Alex is here. thanks to being in Mexico. So we fielded a team in the Champ Car Toyota Atlantic Series for a couple of seasons, and then when that championship somewhat imploded a bit. It went from a field of like over 30 cars to 14, and the new teams went out. So I ended up going back to Canada, started Allen Berg Racing Schools. I realized that I was involved with racing my whole life. I really had no background in real life at all because I was a racing driver. So, I started Allen Berg Racing Schools with taking a second mortgage on my house and then bought 5 used race cars. We started in Calgary, and then from there realized in order to grow the business, the first few years we struggled. Then moved to the United States, in Southern California, still struggled. And then finally an opportunity came to go to a big track, which was at WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca. So we moved there in 2015, and we've been there ever since. And I have to say the last half a dozen years or so, all of our programs run as sold out programs.
That's amazing.
And so that's how that ended up. We still do it. We do a lot of driver safety training programs for manufacturers. We do police training, but we're known for our Formula Car Racing School based there. And out of that, it kind of meshed into Alex's career a little bit, because we moved to the United States because of the fact that Alex got involved into the Mazda series.
Yeah,
he can talk more about that. But we raced there. We ended up acquiring a Mazda race car, and then which was based on the East Coast. We sold that car to another driver, and the other driver needed a team, and so he said, "Well, we can run it for you." And after a very successful run with the Mazdas with Alex, we then kind of transitioned into running our own team.
Wow.
in this Mazda series.
Yep.
And the following season, Alex had, I think, kind of finished in the Formula Cars in North America at that time, and had moved to Europe. But we had drivers that wanted to race with us in Formula Cars, which is what my whole background is.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Berg Racing was essentially formed at that stage, and we went from running a single driver, and in last season we were running 4 drivers, at the end of the season. So now moving into USF is a natural transition for us.
So let's set the stage for Alex now. Alex, you obviously heard your dad's deal there. You're a little bit of his hype man there. You were talking about what he had done as well. But man, let's talk about your career, because obviously it's maybe as important as your dad's when it comes to Berg Racing, because it was you racing that was the genesis of coming out of the school into the program. Obviously, a lot of karting for you. You were a fantastic young kart racer. We saw that at ekartingnews.com. We nominated you to be part of one of our picks for that Mazda shootout, and just talk about the fact that you actually won that shootout and kind of launched your career.
Well, to be honest with you, it's surprising to hear you say that I was a phenomenal young kart racer, because I was okay. But the whole reason that I really struggled in the United States was because I had to race there during COVID. And I'm getting a bit ahead of myself here, but back to the start, 2015 for me, I've always wanted to be a race car driver. When I was really young and the racing school was based in Canada, I would occasionally go to the school as a toddler, and I saw these awesome red race cars, and I just knew that was something that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So when I was 7 years old, there was a racetrack being built in Calgary, and every day leading up to when this racetrack was finished, I just begged my dad to get a go-kart. Please, Dad, please buy me a go-kart. So the Christmas of 2014, I went downstairs on Christmas morning, and there was this orange go-kart that was sitting under the tree for me. And that's sort of how my racing career started. I raced a couple years in local club level. Then in late 2018, I moved up to the United States and started to race nationally in SCUSA and USPKS, and that was a struggle, going from cadet club racing to full-size junior kart racing at a national level. And what hurt me even more was in 2020, really the year that I did the most karting, I was having to travel back and forth between the United States and Canada, and I didn't get to do any testing whatsoever, because when I would go down to the States and do a race, I would be learning the track on the Thursday practice. whereas all these other kids have been driving them since they were like 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then I go back to Canada, and they had a 2-week quarantine rule that you had to stay in your house. We did. It was awful, and so then I would have to stay at my house. I wouldn't be able to go to the go-kart track and practice. And then right when that quarantine time was over, I'd either be helping my dad at the racing school, and then going out to a race. So I wouldn't get any testing in. I'd just be going race to race to race. And it's really a blessing that eKarting News, that you specifically, Rob, chose me for this Mazda scholarship, which I ended up winning later on in 2020. And that sort of jump-started my car racing career. And to be honest with you, that is the whole reason that we're living in the United States, sort of the snowball effect.
There you go. Wow.
So after I won that Mazda scholarship in November of 2020, we made the decision, my dad and I, to move to California because conveniently where the Mazda racing was in California, which is also where the racing school was. So we lived in California. I finished 3rd in that Mazda Spec MX-5 championship for the Mazda factory team. And around the end of the season, my mom was getting pretty tired of living alone in Canada. So out of pretty spontaneously, I will say, my parents bought a house here in Georgia, near Atlanta, where we live. And my mom stayed down in California with us for a couple of days, and then we packed up and moved to Georgia, and that's kind of how we're here.
There you go. I love it.
After that, it was 2022. I raced in the Mazda Championship again. I won the championship in that series, and I was also racing in F4 US, in which I finished 5th. The next year, I decided to focus solely on F4 US, so that was my single campaign that year. I didn't complete the full championship because I ended up going over and racing in England and the Formula Ford Festival and the Walter Hayes Trophy with Team Canada, which was kind of a special experience.
Amazing.
For those of you who don't know, that's pretty much the World Championships of Formula Ford. And pretty much that whole year of 2023, I knew that if I wanted to be something of a racing driver, I needed to go race in the UK. I did feel like I could learn quite a bit in that. So I then was very lucky enough to put together the funding to race in the 2024 British F4 Championship, which I was able to secure 2 podiums and a win, which, I mean, it's pretty good considering I had to learn all the new tracks again, just like I did in karting in 2020.
Right. Exactly.
And then in 2025, I was able to put together some funding to do half a season of the GB4 Championship, but unfortunately after that, I ran into some struggles with the team I was with and budgetaries as well. But I still ended up managing to grab a win and another podium in that championship. And 2025 will be making my debut with Berg Racing in the USF Juniors Championship.
Yeah. Here's first and foremost a full season, and ideally you won't have any trouble with the team. Let's I mean.
That's the whole reason.
That's the whole reason. So
that is the whole reason. I've struggled with teams, so I'm putting my eggs into my own basket.
I like that.
And
your own destiny. Now, Alan, you kind of talked about the school already and the success there, the sold out programs, the development of the team, 4 cars in the JFC F4 program last year. We'll get to the team and the people around it, but I'd like what was the motivation to come to USF Juniors? That's, I think, one of the interesting things, and people have asked me that. You're a brand new team coming in.
Yeah.
What was it? What was the thing that the tipping point? You went, yeah, we're going to do it now.
I think it's a natural progression for us. First of all, we need to be involved with entry level racing series from the racing school to be able to provide drivers the opportunity to make the next step. Yeah. Of course, we're involved with the other series. We still continue to be involved with the other series. But in terms of diversification, I think it's important for us to cover other bases. And I mean, the USF Junior, we did the fall combine test with Alex. We went there, and it just we'd already made the decision and committed. Yeah, in the background of Alex's background, you can see the car there at Indy, and we'd already committed to this program. We visited and actually spent quite a bit of time with you at Barber Motorsport Park last year, and I think coming away from there, Alex and I were convinced this is where we need to. This is where we need to put our future. Just there's so many things that just make absolute sense from a racing team standpoint and from a driver's perspective to be able to be involved with it. And it just made sense for us to really look to be involved with this. Going to the Indy Combine, we were just really impressed by the organization as a whole. And so,
yeah, that's obviously what the series wants to hear. And I mentioned before, it's this vertical development program you have. People come in from karting, they can go to Laguna Seca, they can be part of your racing school, go through your courses.
Yeah.
If they like the culture, if they like the your philosophies, you move over to the F4 program where you develop there, or go straight to juniors if you want, depending on the level of driver you have coming through the schools. Right, we have a lot of drivers that come from the schools straight into USF Juniors, but to be able to have that that vertical line of progression for drivers is big. But the other thing is staff. And you've been doing this a long time. And I know we've talked about it, the staff that you have in Stefan Dornick and Brian Ireland. And I'll let you talk more about these guys. But they haven't just been with you now. You've been with them for a long time, right? But essentially before the racing school as well?
Absolutely. I've known Stefan since 1979 or 1980, I must say.
Wow.
And, he's just as old now as he was then. And he was a race engineer with an opposing team. When I had our Formula Atlantic team, he was our race engineer back in what year was that, Alex? 2001, 2002, I think it was.
Amazing.
We worked with him, in the Formula Atlantic team. It's very good. And then a few years later, Alex was racing in Formula 4 with a team that we had the opportunity to race kind of under their tent. Stefan was Alex's race enginer.
Out of pure coincidence.
That's pure coincidence.
The first person that he actually recognized was my mom when she was there. There's a story behind that, but
we'll get to that. That's awesome.
And so it just became natural that after working with Alex working with Stefan for a season, and we're running a team. Stefan didn't have anything happening, so he kind of carried on working with us. I think this will be our 4th year working together on top of the previous 2 years from so long ago. Brian Ireland, he was my race engineer in Mexico when we dominated in the Marlboro Formula 2 Championship.
Wow.
We were the Marlboro team. He was my race engineer. After that stint in Mexico, he moved back to England. Prior to that, he was the CEO and shareholder and designer of the
Tiger race cars.
Tiger race cars.
Oh wow.
He had a long stint as race engineer with a lot of the top teams. Alex, what are the teams that Brian was with?
It was Campos, wasn't he?
Campos.
Yeah, Campos was a lot of the time. But I think what you're missing as well is he's won everything there is to win in sports car racing with Tiger, building chassis and as a race engineer, everything, Le Mans, Daytona, and all at the top level, Group C racing. He's won it all. Not as a driver, but as an engineer.
Well, and the cool thing is, Alex, your dad's lining up these guys for you. So you had, again, you didn't have the best times this past year running in GB4. You come over here, your dad's assembled everybody. You know all these guys because you've been with them for a couple of years. What confidence and calm does that give you going into this season here, knowing the guys you're going to be working on?
Well, it's quite funny that you mentioned that I've worked with them before, because Stefan obviously was my race engineer in all of 2023, and I was able to work with him as I was the driver's coach for Berg Racing in the F4s in 24. But in 2025, when I was racing GB4, Brian Ireland actually came in to help engineer my car for this race team, which it had its own struggle. So he came in for a couple of rounds and tried to help out. And Stefan also recently came in with the race team over in the UK to try to help out. So I have experience with both engineers, and I have to say they're the two smartest people that I've ever talked to. Like, I can have endless conversations with them about car engineering. I love them.
I love that. That's awesome. So listen, let me just ask you the question, pure driver question. When you first got into the USF Juniors car, what did you think about it? You've driven a lot of different race cars, right? What were your thoughts when you first got into the Tatis JR23?
Well, so the JR23 is different from the FIA Tatis F4 car, but relatively speaking, it is the exact same car with a different bodywork and different engine tune as the GB4. So it was pretty similar, I'd have to say. And both Stefan and Brian have worked in the GB4. I mean, they kind of knew where to pick up from where they left off.
So Alan, how hands-on are you with Alex as a driver coach, as dad, as the coach? You talked about the fact that he helps coach the F4 program, but are you right in on that? Because I know that you have somebody else involved, not just yourself coaching as well. So you can bring up Roberto if you like.
Sure. Well, certainly in his early part of his career, I think I was quite helpful with Alex in understanding the challenges and the pitfalls. I was his mechanic, unfortunately, in karting for a little while, and I didn't quite make the grade there, so I keep my hands off of the race cars. But I passed on whatever I could, and invariably he found when I was providing the coaching and life lessons, I was usually right, because everything that he went through and every other driver's gone through, I've gone through.
You've been there.
The good stuff and the bad stuff. And so I've been able to prep Alex as much as I can. Certainly it gets to a point where there's not a lot more that Alex can learn from me aside from the business side of things. And that's where we work well together. I mean, as far as the driving element is concerned, I think I've passed on all the knowledge, and I can come in with some outside, objective opinions on things with regard to his driving. But I know my limits, and there's certainly there's better coaches and mentors that out there in terms of driving. And so we've tried to help Alex and steer him in the direction, and our team, of course, to bring the best in the business to be involved with.
So another big name that you're going to have here as part of the program in 2026 is Roberto Moreno. We've had him in our paddock many times. Love Roberto, and he's worked with a lot of drivers in our program. He knows our program really well, which I think will translate very nicely into both Alex and the second driver if you're able to get one for 2026.
What
are your thoughts on Roberto?
Well, I'm just really excited to have him on board. I've known Roberto since we had a race together in Mossport. He came across. He was brought in to race for Brian Robertson for Ralt that year, and he just smoked the field. And all the North American drivers were there, and then we're pretty competitive, and suddenly it was like, where did he come from? He came across and he drove away from everybody. So I know of Roberto from back then, and then of course his time in Formula One, right?
Podium finisher
in Formula One, in some great times. And Roberto was there on pure talent and merit. Everything that he's earned is based off of his skill and ability as a racing driver, and an absolute humble gentleman. There's no airs about him that one could justifiably have, having the success and talent that he has in a racing driver. Very down to earth guy, very great communicator. Of course, he went on to race in IndyCar, known as the Super Sub. And just so he knows North American racing very, very well. He knows knows all the tracks.
Yeah, he's a joy to have in our paddock. Again, always it's just such a fantastic guy. One thing I want to touch on, we've touched on some of your guys, but again, this, from the outward looks, somebody might say, oh, this is just Allen starting a team, in juniors to help move Alex up through the program. I think you guys have you've positioned this. He's a co-owner, right? He's with you. Yes, he's the initial driver for Berg Racing and USF Juniors, but the concept is to have a known quantity in the seat, get that data, right? Get that notebook of data throughout the season, so that when the second driver comes, the third driver, and somebody takes Alex's spot, whatever it may be. This is leveraging the experience and the skills of your son to essentially set the baseline for the team. Am I correct with that?
Absolutely. He will be the benchmark, you might say, because when Alex drives the car is being driven at its limit. We're able to get good, detailed, accurate feedback from him, and with the two engineers, develop a good package. We've got some other things going on in the background as well too, in terms of the chassis development that are very, very exciting that I can't really speak about. But we've done some really great development over the winter time with the race car. I'm really looking forward to getting to the first race. But yes, Alex's goal, of course, is to go there and show well for the team. It would be a win-win situation, for Alex and his career, but also for Berg Racing. And so, if we have another driver coming along, they're going to gain the benefit of working with two experienced race engineers, having Alex as a teammate in identical equipment, and gaining the benefit from all of this knowledge.
Agreed.
And if I can add on to that point, I think this sort of strategy of putting me in the car first has already proven that it works. As the car which I raced in 2023 was the same car which we fielded it in Berg Racing's first F4 season in 2024 and 2025. And this most recent year, 2025, we finished second in the teams and drivers championship with Drew Such, Herbert Das, as well as Taisei Murakami and Ronan Bray. And I mean, I'd say that's pretty good for your second year. So we're looking to do the same thing in USF, but this time get the top step.
So let's stick with you, Alex, because I want to go through the schedule, look at 2026 a little bit. What tracks do you know? What tracks you've been on before? Homestead, Kershaw, Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. You can call it that. Your dad and I will call it Mosport because
I'll call it Mosport.
Mosport. Motorsport.
Sorry, I've lost my accent living in the States.
I learned that when I first started for Performance Racing News back in the day. Mid-Ohio after that, Lime Rock, Road America. Let's start with Homestead. I'm sure you've banged out lap after lap after lap at Homestead, but it's going to be a lot of fun. That's part of spring training, February 16th to the 18th. We're not running that last little bit. We're going to run the 3-4 all the way around NASCAR corner. It's going to be a fantastic race, I think. What are your thoughts on Homestead?
Well, I always love those NASCAR half NASCAR tracks with the banking. Yeah. I raced at the Daytona International Speedway in the Mazdas back in 2022, and the drafting fest that you get there is just phenomenal. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's going to be like 10 wide at the line. I think,
well, they had the 6 wide last year, did they not? Something crazy like that. It'll be wild. What about Kershaw? Carolina Motorsports Park. Have you been there yet?
Oh, multiple times. I feel like we're there almost every week. We're going to be testing there in about 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, but you're not. You guys aren't doing the Academy Winter Series. You'll be testing instead, correct?
Yeah, we'll be testing at CMP instead. We've already tested at Homestead with the Academy back in December.
Yep.
But yeah, I've been to CMP many times in many different cars. I quite like it. I think it's a great track. I think the fact that USF is now going there really puts it on the map as a big track, because before it's sort of just known as a testing track, and it's very good, and it's not too far from us, 4 hours. So it's going to be a great round two. And
it's part of Grid Life as well. That's a pretty cool weekend.
Those are great events.
They have a lot of fun those weekends. Up to Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, Mosport Park, whatever you want to call it. Allen's obviously got memories of the racetrack. It's one of the ones that I think if you can be fast at Mosport, you can be fast anywhere. It's just such a different racetrack, high commitment, high speed. Alex, do you have any laps at CMTP, or are we talking? I think everybody's going to be brand new there, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is it'll actually only be the second Canadian track that I've ever driven in a race car.
Wow.
And I only drove my first Canadian racetrack in a car in October 2024 with a sponsor of mine, Jan Berenger of Roden Liesenfeld. But
where was that? What track was it?
That was Area 27, way over on the East Coast.
West Coast.
West Coast. Sorry,
you're
right.
West Coast. Yep.
But yeah, Mosport, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's high commitment track. From what I hear from my dad and from what I'm driving on the sim, super fast. I'm really looking forward to it. And I think more of just being such an iconic track more than the actual layout of itself. I think it'll, in a lower powered car like a USF, it will definitely be about being as smooth as you can, drafting, and towing the line.
Formula Fords have been a big part of that track for many, many, many years, and they put on a fantastic show there. I think the juniors are going to be great. It's Victoria Day Speed Fest as well. That place is going to be packed. It is going to be wall-to-wall people, campers. Canadians love their racing, and they have flocked back to that event. So it's going to be a big one with NASCAR there as well, the NASCAR Canada Series. From there, we go to Mid-Ohio. I know you know that track. Everybody's kind of used Mid-Ohio as a primary test track and racetrack. Are you a fan of Mid-Ohio? Some people love it. Some people don't.
I love it. I love the hot summer days there at Mid-Ohio. I don't know what it is, but the track feels like a roller coaster to me. All the ups and downs, left and right. It feels like you're always turning, even on the straightaways. I think it's a phenomenal racetrack.
Are you good there?
Oh yeah, I'm good there.
I like that. All right.
I'm good at every track.
Another one. So here's one. I've never been to Kershaw. I've never been to Lime Rock. I don't know how I've never ever been to Lime Rock before. It's kind of a simple layout, which is really the one left-hander. Runs in the clockwise direction. Another big weekend. It's a NASCAR truck weekend. What's your experience at Lime Rock, if there is any?
Well, I don't have any experience at Lime Rock apart from probably a bajillion laps on iRacing, because they have a lot of races there.
They do.
But it's quite interesting, that track, because it reminds me of lots of the tracks in the UK, which are very short, always kind of long flowing corners. So I think it'll be quite good there. One thing that's going to really, I think, affect the whole field is the lack of overtakes that I think is going to happen. There's going to be a lot of aero wash there. So qualifying is going to be very important. And even in the few slim overtaking opportunities that I'll get, I think I'll have an advantage versus my peers, the other drivers, just because I've been racing in the UK and I really know how to make overtakes happen in these really difficult tracks.
Yeah, understood. Some of the more narrow tracks, like Olton Park, that kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Last but not least, Road America, my favorite racetrack in North America. I absolutely love Road America. Have you been? I'm sure you've been there a number of times with F4. You feel the same way? Is it a track you like?
Yeah, I haven't been there for, wow, it'll be 3 years. That's crazy.
Wow, okay.
I haven't been there in 3 years, but I really, really love the track. I think just going to Road America as for any event is super special. That's again going to be another draft fest at closing out the championship. That'll be very interesting. You'll probably see some things happen in the last few laps that are quite surprising, but I love the track.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I love the track.
What do we got to do to get Allen in the car? I'm sure he can fit into your seat.
Well,
Ooh, that's a good.
Have you even talked about? He's got to turn some laps.
I haven't driven a car for a while. I think I might leave it up to the drivers, the young guys that are good at it versus making a fool of myself.
I understand that. One thing I talk to a lot of young drivers, a lot of families about when they're talking about getting into our program, into the USF Pro Championships, and they're picking teams, whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. I always tell them, I said, test for more than one team. Because I said every team's a bit different. Culture's top down. This team, the person that runs it, they run their program, their business different ways, right? And they're all different people with different characteristics, different mindsets. What's the culture at Allen Berg? Is that a question you can answer? Obviously it's top down now. You've been around a long time. You're experienced. You're an educator. You're a coach. You're a driver yourself. Is there a way you can maybe describe the culture and how you maybe treat people and how the atmosphere is under your tent?
Well, first of all, the name of our racing school is Allen Berg Racing Schools. So that differentiates us in terms of schools themselves, because my name is on it. I'm at the schools. Alex is there. He's one of the key instructors at these programs. And Berg Racing, the same thing. Our name is on it. And I think referring to us as a family team has positive and negative connotations to it. I mean, certainly our team is smaller and focused with the drivers, where some racing teams have, they're running multiple classes and many cars in each one of the classes. And what we've done is we've been able to take the drivers that are with us in the past, focusing with, one or two or three drivers at a time, and really put all of our effort in focusing on developing the race car and developing the driver. And our engineers are very sympathetic towards the drivers, in terms of listening to them and giving them the benefit of a doubt, because there's always the cloud as to whether it's any lacking performance is driver related or car related or a bit of both. Our engineers really work with the drivers and also try to educate the drivers to understand setup of the race car, race situations, racecraft. The way I kind of view things is when a driver comes to us, we know that as a race team, we want to evolve into higher categories, but a driver's progress and timeline is much faster than a team.
Yeah.
And our objective is to try to maximize the driver's, fulfill the driver's potential, the maximum possibility for the time that they have, with that being one season or 2 seasons. We want to educate that driver, make the driver the best that driver can possibly be while they're with us, because in the end, that's kind of what our calling card is going to be in the end is our reputation, based upon how our drivers do.
And one of the things, Alan, I find very interesting, and obviously it's not, you don't see it anywhere else to a certain extent, not at all. You get a driver at a karting right into your school, and you see them at their first steps, their baby steps into a car, and your ability to really develop that driver. It's like a coach coaching a quarterback, in high school, then staying with them through college, and like that, that driver, their weaknesses and their strengths. Mm-hmm. It's to be able to take someone out of the school through all your programs up into USF Juniors. I think that's a really valuable thing, and it's very unique in the sport. And you being so hands-on at school, I think they're under your wing from the very beginning. You take care of that driver. You teach them about the sport, not just in the in-car, but the business of it as well, because you've done all that. You've had hands-on with Alex's career as well. So I feel like there's so much knowledge you can bring to a driver, not only a driver, but the family as well.
Yeah, absolutely. For both Alex and myself, and everybody that's involved with the team. I mean, our mechanics that have been with us, Nick Moore is, I think it's his 4th year working with the team. And so he's been with us for a long time, and he comes with a diverse background of racing, and Nick Woosley. But everybody that's a part of the team, it's a very cohesive unit. And there's other members of the team, of course, that are with us as well too. But the whole purpose of us being there is to win races and fight for championships and help our drivers be the best that they possibly can be on the track and off the track. And when you join Berg Racing, as you say, it's life experiences that drivers gain. Racing can be a metaphor for life.
It can.
They're metaphors for life, and we kind of project that to help young drivers to learn life lessons with us, and they become one of our own. Our drivers are our family.
Yeah. Yeah. Alex, let's kind of wrap things up with you a bit here right now. I have to believe that you're starting to get a little bit crazy right now, because we talked to each other, I think it was April in Barber. You guys decided, well, hey, we're going to go juniors racing. You pick up the equipment, you put everything together. You still haven't raced the juniors race yet. You come to the combine last October. That was 3.5, 4 months ago. We're actually 3 weeks away. The Tuesday, the 17th, is the first race day. Obviously, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. How anxious are you to finally get on the racetrack at Homestead and actually go racing for this new Berg Racing program?
Well, I'm super excited. It's not the first time that I've raced under the Berg Racing flag. I raced this past year sort of as a shoe-in to help one of our drivers fight for a championship. But I can't wait to see what we can achieve, and I can't wait to get back to my winning ways, if I'm being completely honest with you.
I love that. Guys, I want to thank you for taking the time to be with me. It's awesome to have you here. First of all, listen, if anybody's interested, there's carters out there, there's racers. They see this team, they're learning more about the culture, they're learning more about what you guys bring to the table, the amount of experience you have in terms of your race engineers and Stefan and Brian and the crew and everybody involved, Alex, yourself, Alan. Where do they go if they want to learn more? Can they connect with you on social media? I know I think there's a page on the Allen Berg Racing School's website. How do they find out more about you guys, and how do they connect with you on social media if they want to talk to you guys about maybe a test or learn more about the team?
Well, we're on Instagram and Facebook, and of course we have a website. That website is team.allenbergracingschools.com, and our handles on Instagram is bergracing_, Facebook, just simply Berg Racing.
And I'll make sure, obviously, when we make this into a podcast, we'll tag it. I'll push this out tomorrow again for those who may have missed the show. So I'll tag it in if you're watching this, and I'll even drop in. I'll throw their links in the bottom as well when we're all done this one here. Guys, as I said, we're 3 weeks away. In fact, a little less than that. We're on track on the Monday. We load in on Sunday evening at Homestead Miami Speedway. It's going to be a lot of fun to get the season off, rolling all the way through then to the end of September at Road America. I hope you guys have a fantastic season. I look forward to seeing you guys on the racetrack. Car looks fantastic. It's time to go racing, guys. I appreciate you being with us here.
Appreciate it, Rob. Thank you. It was a happy, chill vibe.
Yeah, thank you, Rob, and look forward to seeing you in Homestead in a few weeks.
No doubt, guys. I'm going to drop you in the back of the studio. Don't go anywhere. I want to chat with you before we wrap things up. But as I drop Alex and Alan off here, let me just wrap things up. Hey, listen, a fantastic story. I didn't get a chance to mention that, we talk a lot about Alan's career, everything he did, working his way into a Formula One ride with Oslo for a little bit, all the success he had coming up through the ranks, Mexican F2. He's also part of the Canadian Motorsports Hall of Fame, was inducted back in 2019. A definitely deserved honor for one of the greats of Canadian motorsports. They're going to have a lot of fun this year. I talked about who they put together for this program. You can see really experienced engineers. You got Roberto Moreno, driver coach. Alan's there. Alex is there. If you're a young driver looking for a seat to work your way into USF Juniors, either this year or even next year, start a testing program. I think they have a seat available for 2026 if you want to jump into it. This is a team that's got the right tools, the right people around to be able to take a driver and put them where they need to be in USF Juniors. A lot of learning for any young driver on the first rung of the USF Pro Championships presented by Continental Tire. That wraps things up for this edition. I'm not sure about next week. I had a couple drivers lined up for next week, but as I mentioned before, the Academy Winter Series is, I believe, next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I think it's all week at Sebring and Homestead. So I may not be able to get anybody for next week's show. It may be the week after. And if it's the week after, it might even be the USF Juniors preview show at that point, because again, they're rolling on February the 16th, 17th, and 18th. Thank you so much for tuning in, folks. I do appreciate it. A great show with Alex and Allen Berg Racing and USF Juniors. My name is Rob Howden. Bye for now.